Hello, everyone. This is Will. Welcome back. This is part three of me reading from the 12 Caesars by Suetonius. So, last time we left off, Julius Caesar had divorced his wife, Pompeia, because she may or may not have um, allowed Publius Clodius to sneak into the Bonadea secret cult meeting, which was women only. So, again, so far, there's a lot happening in Caesar's life early on before he becomes emperor, before he goes off and does all the conquering. The first video, I read the first one or two paragraphs, and then we finished off in the second video with all the way up to paragraph 6. So today I'm going to start with 7 and see how far we get. So, paragraph 7. Farther, Spain fell to his lot as quaestor, when there, as he was going the circuit of the province by a commission from the praetor for the administration of justice, and had reached Gades, seeing a statue of Alexander the Great, he who is always named in ancient studies, especially Mediterranean, in the temple of Hercules, he sighed deeply, as if weary of his sluggish life for having performed no memorable actions at an age at which Alexander had already conquered the world. He, therefore, immediately sued for his discharge, with the view of embracing the first opportunity, which might present itself in the city, of entering upon a more exalted career. In the stillness of the night following, he dreamt that he lay with his own mother. Okay. But his confusion was relieved, and his hopes were raised to the highest pitch by the interpreters of his dream, who expounded it as an omen that he should possess universal empire. For that the mother who was in his sleep he had found submissive to his embraces was no other than the earth, the common parent of all mankind. Okay, so before I go any further, paragraph 7 is saying a lot. So, to this day, people, historians, world leaders, politicians will quote Alexander the Great. They'll tell you that if you want to know ancient history, you have to know Alexander the Great and what he did, how much he conquered, how he conquered Persia, how he made it to India, how he conquered Egypt, and so on and so on, built Alexandria. Um, yeah, he did a lot. He becomes a name that, like Julius Caesar throughout my life, is a name that you basically just get tired of hearing because it's as if sometimes historically there's no one else in some people's minds you could ever imitate than Caesar or Alexander. But that's just my personal opinion. You don't have to agree with that. But setting that aside, this is saying Suetonius is telling us that Caesar decided that he needed to be great because he saw a statue of Alexander the Great. Now, was he the first one who got that impression historically? I'm sure he wasn't, but he's probably the first famous person who got that after Alexander's death. And Alexander the Great came almost 300 years before Julius Caesar. But Suetonius is telling us that Caesar decided he had to become an important man, a conqueror, uh, because he saw Alexander the Great and that he was already past his age when he had already conquered so much land. And I find that, I don't know, Rome is always told about greatness and conquering, colonialism. It's good, it's great. I love their architecture. I love the Latin language. I love their art. You know, a lot of their art came off the Greeks. And the Greeks, you could say, came off the Egyptians. But the colonialism and the imperialism, I have zero interest in, but I have an interest in the people. And I want to learn what the average person's life was like. I know that that's hard to do because we don't have most of the writings. We have to piece together through archaeology what little bits and pieces we can get of the average person in Rome. So you're mostly going to get the writings of the poets, the playwrights, the politicians, and so on, the ones who did rhetoric. And that's fine because you can find inspiration in them as well. I personally don't have much interest in the imperialism and the conquering and the mass deaths all over the place, the murdering and the enslavement. Nah, because people till now, 2,000 years later, are still trying to imitate that, are still trying to call it a great thing. And yeah, sorry, I disagree. However, I do want history that should dissuade you from wanting to learn history and learn what's going on. And as I said in the previous two videos, I find this much more interesting, what I'm hearing about Caesar. And now this paragraph has given me his modus operandi for why he went the direction he went. Because before then, it was just he came, he saw, he conquered, he did everything in it. Okay, well, how did he get there? What was his mind? What was his mental state? No answer. And here, we're not even a page and a half into this book, and it's all laid out. Never heard a teacher say, well, go read Suetonius. Anyway, part two of paragraph 7. The dream of his mother. When I first read that, I think you probably saw the look on my face, and I thought, oh, okay, he slept with his mom in his dream. Weird. So it's nice that someone later interpreted that as, well, we're sleeping with the earth, and the earth wants you to conquer. I guess I wasn't there. Me personally, I think when you read anything, you should be allowed to have your own personal thoughts. You should also look at the text for what the text is trying to tell us, and then you should look at the historical significance. So Suetonius is trying to give us grounds for further grounds for Caesar's encouragement to become an emperor, to move in the direction that we know he was going to go. And this paragraph is basically just the setup. This is the transition from, okay, before that he was just doing what he was told, he did what he had to. This block of information is Alexander the Great statue and him reminiscing on him. Combination of this so-called prophetic dream was the impotence that took him over the edge, and now he says, I must go and conquer. I must go and be great. Now that could have just been because he was Roman, and Roman men of status and power was sort of impressed that they had to anyway. But this paragraph is clearly showing us that he had these two things going for him, and once these things had happened, he was okay. Let's go. It's all right. We're in. He's locked and loaded. He's got a goal. He's on a mission. Let's see what paragraph 8 says. Quitting therefore the province before the expiration of the usual term, he betook himself to the Latin colonies, which were then eagerly agitating the design of obtaining the freedom of Rome, and he would have stirred them up to some bold attempt, had not the consuls, to prevent any commotion, detained for some time the legions which had been raised for service in Cilicia. This did not deter him from making, soon afterwards, a still greater effort within the precincts of the city itself. So he left his assigned political duty early so that he could go and take part in the bit of an uprising or two. He would have stirred them up to some bold attempt, but had not the councils to prevent any commotion, detained for some time the legions. So that did not stop him, however, a still greater effort within the precincts of the city itself. Okay. Paragraph 9. For only a few days before he entered upon the aedileship, that's a political position, a local one, he incurred a suspicion of having engaged in a conspiracy with Marcus Crassus. Again, Caesar's on the conspiracy kick, but that seems to be a thing with any political figure in Rome. But that's not much different from today. A man of consular rank, to whom were joined Publius Sylla and Lucius Autronius, who, after they had been chosen consuls, were convicted of bribery. The plan of the conspirators was to fall upon the Senate at the opening of the new year, and murder as many of them as should be thought necessary, upon which Crassus was to assume the office of dictator and appoint Caesar his master of the horse. Okay. So I'm only a few sentences in, and paragraph 9 is chunkier than 8 or 7. But already Suetonius is telling us that Caesar's goal was the overthrow of the Senate with Crassus. from the jump, once he got his inspiration, his two-way uh, encouragement to take over. I kind of was expecting this was going to be some sort of, he was going to rise up the ranks as fast as possible, become an ideal, and maybe take consul, join the Senate, whatever, and then move up. But no, according to this, he's in conspiracy from the jump. And that's interesting. Okay. When the Commonwealth had been thus ordered according to their pleasure, the consulship was to have been restored to Sulla and Atronius. Mention is made of this plot by Tanucius Geminus in his history, by Marcus Bibulus in his edicts, and by Curio the father in his orations. Cicero likewise seems to hint at this in a letter to Axius, where he says that Caesar had in his consulship secured to himself that arbitrary power to which he had aspired when he was aedile. Tanucius adds that Crassus, from remorse or fear, did not appear upon the day appointed for the massacre of the Senate, for which reason Caesar omitted to give the signal, which, according to the plan concerted between them, he was to have made. The agreement, Curio says, was that he should shake off the toga from his shoulder. We have the authority of the same Curio and of M. Octorius Naso for his having been likewise concerned in another conspiracy with young Cnaeus Piso, to whom, upon a suspicion of some mischief being meditated in the city, the province of Spain was decreed out of the regular course. It is said to have been agreed between them that Piso should head a revolt in the provinces, whilst the other should attempt to stir up an insurrection at Rome, using as their instruments the Lambrani and the tribes beyond the Po River. But the execution of this design was frustrated in both quarters by the death of Piso. It's two conspiracies to murder all senators. I'd have to imagine that's no small task, because senators had been killed before in Rome's history, and they would get killed again later on. But this is a plot to execute all of them. I think the Senate had around, at one point, 300 members. So I'm not sure if that's how many they had at this time, but these guys did not climb any small mountains. And then when that one didn't work, he supposedly, so we're not saying he actually did them, but Suetonius goes, he supposedly was immediately involved in another one with someone else. So he's just followed the bouncing ball of conspiracies and overthrow attempts. Yeah, Caesar's wild. His life is wild. So I don't know how much of this is true. I'm going to go look up Publius Sulla, Lucius Altronius, Tanucius Geminus, Marcus Bibulus, and Curio, and Cnaeus Piso. And I'll see if I can make some shorts about them. But I think those 3 paragraphs are going to do it for this video, because that's, I think that's mind-blowing. Because so far, Caesar is always into something from the time he's young. And I assumed he would be in something when he's trying to grab power. I did not assume he was going to go that hard. So, yeah, I'll go look up these other names. I'll see what I can get up to. If you're watching any of this, let me know what you think.